So why have we got hundreds and hundreds of videos of almost everything in World War II? Yes. Because a lot of them were made after the war and they're forgeries. Yes. Nobody seems to think that. Can you imagine? You've got Hitler and General Rommel and all these people in General Montgomery, all of them looking at maps, charts, and plans, standing there. There's some pathetic pictures. I forgot, with Hitler's commander-in-chief. I've forgotten his name. Yeah, that he's looking at the Eastern Front, and there's somebody else standing there, yes, holding up a big board in his hand. Yeah, and he's just standing there in a garden, and this commander-in-chief is having a look at everything, saying, hey, let's make these plans here and there. And somebody's just standing there, you know, like the slaves did, like they show in the Roman Empire, you know, somebody standing there holding them. It's just ridiculous. And the photographers and all these people are there right at the right moment. And all these people have got their hair and their uniforms look brand new and everything. It's a lot of it is a scam. Yes. Yeah. And now the worst thing is, did you read the book called The Matrix? Did you actually read it? Did you read the book number 19? So now, by now, you must realize it sounds like a joke. It definitely sounds ridiculous. Yes. When you read that book number 19, by then you must have realized something is wrong. Did you realize? Yes. Yeah. And now the worst thing is nobody. It's like it's really doing my head in, never mind anybody else's. Nobody is talking about this. Even that child called Ryan that they showed all the way around the world. You know, the Israelis and the Arabs don't get on. This child called Ryan from Morocco was broadcast on Israeli TV many times. It was broadcast all around the world. Yes. And they normally won't show children in the third world. Check this out. Check all the news broadcasts. They started digging underground and they went down to 19 meters. Then the child was found on the 33rd meter underground. 19 and 33, and those are the two numbers, you know, when the sun, moon, and the earth come together every 19 years and every 33 years. Yeah. So the thing is, and after you read that book number 19, you'll know that nobody has mentioned the number 19. You can't find anything about it. Did you notice? And then nobody is talking about it in history. And there's this mysterious book called the Quran there that nobody can stand. Nobody can stand these Muslims, Arabs, or whatever. Yeah, that I noticed that it was so difficult for me 2 years ago to even put a post about Arabs. I was surprised this week when I put, was Arabic the language of Europe? I was so surprised that the same people on my Facebook who wouldn't have even, you know, considered it. Yeah, I didn't get any negative comments because they've read my books. Yeah, you wouldn't see something like that. You know, for people who don't know, it's because they don't know. It's like nobody's going to believe it. Yeah, nobody's going to believe it. But the thing is, nobody told us about number 19. And we've got this strange book there that people are memorizing in the Middle East, and they themselves don't realize what they're memorizing. But all they know, hey, you've got to fight and protect this. And they're willing to go out of their way. They're willing to go out of their way, yeah, just to memorize this book because they've been told a few generations ago saying, hey, there's a war going on to destroy history, to destroy everything. That's what it says in that book. And then it says, hey, you're going to go out there, you will find this code and it's going to be written there and you will notice it. And then you'll know who's telling the truth and who's lying. That's what it actually says. Nobody else mentions that to you. What do you have to say about that, Raphael? I don't know what to say. So what are you going to say? Go on. No, I'm challenging you the same way. It's like when you read that book, it doesn't actually say it to you just in a small way. It challenges you and says, hey, go out there and you're going to see it. Go out there, you will find it. Go and look. Yeah. And and then it says, I'm challenging you. I'm challenging you. Yeah. Who's speaking the truth? And then that same book, it tells you that there was this previous civilization called Atlantis. We cannot find a single document that mentions about Atlantis, apart from forgeries after the Renaissance or during and after the Renaissance. And we don't even know when they were written. They were written in Italian during the Renaissance, and we can't find anyone who speaks Italian. I put one post about that Italian thing, but check this out. We can't find anybody who spoke German before 1800. Check this out. We can't find people who spoke French before 1800. They claim that during the time of Napoleon Bonaparte, an estimated 10% of people spoke French, average or basic. It seemed like saying, you got somebody from China. I speak English a little. I know so much I can speak. I go to England. I have an English friend. Yeah, this is what they're telling us, that nobody spoke French. We can't seem to find it. Even, around the First World War, in France, Germany, and Italy, a large percentage of people couldn't even speak French, German, English, Italian, Spanish. The list goes on. We've got a serious problem. Nobody seems to think these things. Oh, yeah, they don't speak Chinese in China 100 years ago. Yeah, we got a serious problem. So nobody is thinking this, and then they're all going to put references saying, have a look at this. We've found these maps, even the subject of Tartaria. I've shown in my work saying, hey, we've got these maps that show Tartaria, but we've got a serious problem. These maps are from the Renaissance times. Yeah, many of these maps that are showing the world are written with Italian. Yes, in the same books, in languages that nobody spoke. And then we've got these same books, which they're claiming are from the printing presses after the Renaissance, and they printed millions of copies of them. They're telling us that in the 16th century, I forgot how many, 10 or 20 million books in French and Italian, etc., and German. 10 or 20 million books, and people don't speak these languages. And then we're being shown, look at these amazing buildings, yeah, and then look at the quality of these books. Therefore, these books are nothing but forgeries. The full history is a forgery. That if anybody is going to come up, it's like somebody put a post in one of my in one of my pictures this week, and then they said, "Hey, have a look at this Arabic." They are claiming, saying from the Arabic was. Some people are trying to claim Orientalists, invented Arabic recently, and then somebody pulls out saying, "Look at this Italian Arabic dictionary from 1639." But then. I replied to them and said, hey, we can't find a single Italian coin, from the Middle Ages. We can't find a single one. But we found Arabic coins in Australia. And then people are looking at these Australian buildings and nobody's asking, hey, why have they found these Arabic coins around Australia? Then we've got these amazing buildings in America, and they've been destroyed. And then nobody's asking, hey, the oldest coins in America they found are just after the Renaissance, 16th, 17th century coins. And they're Arabic. Yeah. And then nobody's asking questions. Somebody else put some pathetic comments on my post this week saying, hey, what about these Khazarian Jews? Blah, blah, blah. They seems to be this and that. Yeah. But, the so-called Khazarian Jews were supposedly in Eastern Europe, starting from Poland into Russia. But the entire region, has got nothing but Arabic coins. And then I put another video, which not many people seem to pay attention to. The clothes of the Holy Roman Emperor. It's got thousands of diamonds and pearls on it. And the thing is, it's just got Arabic all over it. And not just the Arabic, but I made sure that there was a part in there that shows what the decorations show. And obviously, I noticed, because many people don't seem to check things, but if you investigate that video, and have a look at the cloaks of the Holy Roman Emperors very carefully, what is strange is that the Holy Roman Emperors were crowned in Aachen Cathedral in Germany. Is that in Germany, Aachen? Yeah. And if you look at all the old photographs of that building, there's no towers or whatever. These so-called energy towers that everybody's talking about. If people are going to talk about saying, hey, maybe in Colonial Cathedral they just finished it. Well, what about the hundreds and hundreds of other so-called cathedrals? We've got similar buildings in Egypt. Not a single one is a church. We've got similar buildings in India, and they don't have no towers. It's because people have not been. They're all focusing on these cathedrals and they think, it's Europe, Europe. What is wrong with these people that they're only going to be looking at one side of the world? That's another stupid thing. That's why I think these Tataria groups and these so-called Tataria videos and everything, it's become crazy. It's just a waste of time. It is just a waste of time. Many of them are posting repeat photos, techno-tech, technology, this and that, and they're going on, they're talking about free energy. This is not a question of just free energy. I've not said there's no free energy, but I've said, hey, yes, what I've said is, hey, the story of the free energy towers in many of these buildings is a scam, because many of these buildings, I showed a perfect example, Galata Tower, similar to, they turn around and say that that tower is one of the major towers. After that, similar towers were made throughout Europe. Yeah, that's what they say, that you'll see them as far away as Sweden, as Holland, Germany, Italy, as far north as Sweden. So now the thing is, the tower thing, it's a scam. Now, going back to the Holy Roman Emperor's cloaks, yes, they use that for their coronation. Now, that cloak is amazing. It's just a bit too much. The number of diamonds and pearls, and it's just made of solid gold. It's just a joke. It's just a joke, and it's in red. Yeah? So the thing is, when you look at that, it's got Arabic writing on. And it's not just the Arabic writing on. Yeah? Everybody turns around and says that the Holy Roman Emperor is around that time of Charlemagne. Yeah? Charlemagne in French. Yeah? Or in European Jewish accent, they say shalom, so it's Charlemagne. Yeah, but then when you go to the east, to Eastern Europe, it's Solomon. Yes, it's Solomon. So the name is similar. And then the thing is, we've got these so-called Knights Templar, the Knights of Christ of the Temple of Solomon, or the Knights of Christ and the Temple of God, however you wish to say it. And they've got something to do with Temple Mount. Now, even with the forged documentation, yeah, because you can't forge everything. We do know that, for example, September the 11th happened. Yeah, they've told us lies about it, but what they can't hide is that the buildings went down. So obviously they modified the story, but they've kept half the truth. They've told us George Bush was president. Yeah, at the time, Tony Blair was the prime minister. So half the information they've still kept there. Hu Jintao was the leader of China. Yes, things like that. So they kept the information, but what we've got is from the Middle Ages. The Tehran say that the Temple of Solomon, yes, one of the major temples of Solomon, because Solomon obviously didn't build one temple. Yeah, nobody builds just one. You build a few buildings here and there throughout the time that you're in power. So it turns around and says that it's an octagonal shaped building. Yes. And then when you look at the so-called Temple Mount, yeah, in Jerusalem, there's a building on top of there right now. It's an octagonal building, as described by what we've got left from the history of the Knights Templar. And then Aachen Cathedral, the interior, yeah, it's been modified so many times, but the arches and many other things are identical to the one in Temple Mount. Now, the one in Temple Mount that the Muslims call Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, another thing about that mosque, the inside decorations, yeah, the inside decorations are mysteriously identical to what's on the cloak of the Holy Roman Emperor, of his coronation cloak. The day of the ceremony is basically identical. Now, we've got a problem there. Why have they got that on their cloak? Who were these kings that ruled Europe? And then why is the building Aachen Cathedral, where they all got their coronation, why is it, with all these similarities in construction and architecture to this Temple Mount Mosque? And the Temple Mount Mosque, when you look at the old pictures, as old as you can go, yeah, there's many of them. You will notice that the building looks old, and they haven't managed to change much of it. For example, they can modify as many cathedrals as they want in Europe. The Europeans aren't going to do anything. Just go into the Middle East and try to modify these buildings that are similar to the cathedrals, and you'll see what they'll do to you. Just go and try and touch that building and see what the Muslims will try and do to you. Oh yeah, they want to knock that building down. Yes, all these evangelicals and other organizations, people going to churches, they don't know what they're doing. They're just singing on their Sundays. And then they're being told, hey, these devil Eastern heathens, pagans, they've got hold of that. And they knocked down the Temple of Solomon and replaced it with something else. Nobody's even investigating who really built that building, what these buildings are for. Yes. And then everybody calls Solomon Sol, the sun, and the moon, the moon. Yeah, many people are suspicious about that. But then nobody's ever had a look at what's on top of Temple Mount. There's two mosque type buildings there. One building has got a gold dome like the sun. Then the other one has got a silver type of dome like the moon. Yes, yes. And the thing is, one's for the sun and one's for the moon. Those buildings are the Sol and the moon, or the Solomon. Yes. But nobody's ever thought of that. Yes, they think that, hey, those buildings are gone. That's because nobody's ever bothered to check. So we got all these types of problems. And then in Europe, yes, people have been programmed to hate anything to do with Arabic or Arabs. No matter what, it's just very difficult. It's so difficult for people to actually even consider it. Even with all the proof, I'm sure that people are going to find it difficult. But if you've read all the books so far, the history is so suspicious that it looks like the entire civilization of Europe and America was Arabic and had something to do with the Quran.
Yes, and
there's no doubt about it.
Yes, and
there is no
just
doubt.
a video that you shared by Sylvie Ivanova about St. Stephen's Cathedral. You know, I live in Vienna, so I kind of know that building. And that apparently even there's scriptures referencing Suleyman, like you said, Solomon, sun and moon. Yeah. And what it makes me wonder about is whether even here, whether it's, you know, some King Solomon or some, however you would call it, Suleyman, whether that is really primarily referencing an individual, or whether this is actually just referencing, you know, the sun and moon itself, or quote unquote God as an abstract concept
Solomon
itself.
Solomon was an individual. Yeah. But they turned it into a guy. Now I will give you an example, which is hard to understand. Now, Muhammad, yes, in the Bible, even if the Bible's got seems to be a forgery, there's many things that is still there from the original. For example, in modern Hebrew, the word truth, which is very common. Yeah, if you just went into a court in Tel Aviv, that you've got to say, I'm speaking the truth, you will say, emet, emet, emet. That word means truth. Now, mysteriously, there's a big mosque in Istanbul called Sultan Ahmet Mosque. Sultan Ahmet in English. Yeah. Now, Ahmet or Emet, it just means the word truth. Now, the thing is, in the Quran, yes, they don't use the letter T. They pronounce it with a D. That's why the Turks say Mehmet, but the Arabs will say Mehmed. Yes. You know, Mehmet, it's a common name.
Right.
You know, I'm sure, many people know for these Turks, and for these Arabs, it's Mehmet. Yes. Now, the thing is, the Quran says that the title of the great prophet who was to come in the future, that his title was Ahmed. Yes. Now, in the Bible, it says, you know, in the modified pronunciation in the Bible, because Hebrew pronunciation has been modified, by the Masoretes, which they claim was a long time ago. But if you put it with more accurate dating, the way Fomenko has shown, that's more recent. The Masoretic pronunciation has changed it. And after that, so they pronounced it as Emet. Yes, that's why the Turks, they pronounce it Mehmet. Yes, so nobody has ever thought, why do the Turks say Mehmet? Now, the word Muhammad or Mehmed or Muhammad, actually means Ma means mother. Maharusha means Mother Russia. So Muhammad means mother of truth. So Muhammad's name is a title. So in the same way, yes, Solomon is not only a title, but he might have possibly had other names. Yes, it's like the Muslims turn around and say Muhammad had other names too, that they called him, you know, trustworthy, and other names, titles that people gave. It's like Many of my friends that call me Prince, saying, "Yo, Prince, what you saying? What time are you coming out?" It's just English common language. People just give you a title, yes, things like that. Yes, it, a title. I'm sure you've had nicknames. Do you know what nicknames are?
Yeah, of course, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like when I was in high school and after that, many people used to call me Prince. Nobody knew my name. When you're young, when you go out on Fridays, on weekends in your local area, many people get to know you, and they don't call you your real name. So these things are very common. Yes. So Solomon might have been his title, but that doesn't mean he didn't exist. But the evidence shows there's too much of it. It shows that he did exist, but they modified the history. Now, what is more mysterious is that the way that history is written in the Quran is totally different to what we see with the rest of world history. It's totally different. Nobody's going to have a look. Even after I gave so many books out, I thought, or even after Flamenco, what happened is after Flamenco, there was a revolution. It started off a big revolution that people started to look at history again. But then that revolution was hijacked by people who are making videos and making posts, and they've made people totally forget what the lies are and where the truth might be. Yes. Oh, what did they do on the Wikipedia pages everywhere else, the media and the press? They labeled Flamenco as a Russian nationalist so that people will think, hey, this is to do with Russian and nationalism, that he's trying to say everything is Russian, blah, blah, blah. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say anything like that. He did focus from Moscow. He started from there. And then he went out to history in other places of the world. And then what he did was he showed, hey, inside the Kremlin, yeah, for the Kremlin armory, yeah, what we're looking at for the entire armory, yeah, we've got nothing but Arabic here, nothing but the verses of the Quran. And then he made an investigation into the entire history. Of course, if you're over there, you're going to focus on that region. So now somebody else is going to say, you wrote a book about Hitler, David, yes? Or your book focuses more on the Allies and in Europe. Your book doesn't focus on the war in Africa or, let's say, the Second World War in India. Yeah, because I'm going to be in England. That doesn't mean I'm a European nationalist. So instead, they did that and wrote that down, to divert people. He's a Russian nationalist. What sort of, it doesn't sound like Russian and nationalism when you're going to be saying, hey, by the way, your ancestors, they were Muslims. They were using Arabic here. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
does that sound like Russian nationalism?
Just, no. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, that's completely ridiculous. Just what's interesting is even in Austria, so if you go to school in Vienna or in Austria, I guess anywhere, primary school even, and that's very important always, the things they try to teach you very early. Here, one of the main memes that's being taught is that there were, I guess, 2 so-called Turkish sieges. In Germany, would call it Türkenbelagerung. And this is one of the big things you learn about history in primary school, is that supposedly the whatever Ottoman Empire, whatever it would have been at that point, had been at the gates of Vienna at least 2 times. And this is what they then used to explain whatever kind of, whether it's coffee or any supposedly Arabic influence culturally, they explain it like this. And I just thought that this would be a perfect reversal of history. Right. If in truth, they did not besiege Austria, let's say, but that Austria was, for example, whatever this would mean exactly, I'm going to say a Muslim country. This is, of course, not the proper way to say it in the current context, but that they had a different organization of religion. That
it was a Muslim civilization.
Right.
Yeah. It's like even in my books, I don't want to say it straightforward, Muslim civilization, blah, 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 because somebody's going to turn around and think, what, not just think
because, of course, just very briefly, even today, of course, in all the cultures, I guess we discussed this once, or other religions, they usually set up some sects, which they give a lot of money, and they are often the most confused ones.
It's full of these pathetic sects. But let's go back to Vienna now. It's because now the thing is, Austria, they've turned it into a country. But when you're going to be talking about that one church in Vienna, now they've destroyed hundreds of these buildings around the world. Now, many people who are doing all these Tartaria groups and other things, they're focusing more on the buildings that survive. Like, for example, you will say, hey, there is Cologne Cathedral, Reims Cathedral,
Yeah.
there is, Seville
Aachen, even, I
Cathedral,
think. Yeah.
Vienna Cathedral. That's because they're in urban centers that they needed to keep, and they refurbished these buildings. But what about the hundreds of buildings that are half destroyed out in the countryside that nobody's having a look at? Now, in many of these buildings, yes, they're half destroyed, and inside these buildings, in the parts that are not destroyed, you can't find a single statue whatsoever of these so-called statue decorations that people are putting in Tartary groups, saying, "Look at this amazing decoration! Wow, how did they do that at this time?" That's
I mean,
because it was done.
yeah, there is at least, maybe you can explain this a bit. There is at least one consideration that there may have been these structures, then there may have already been some kind of a reset, and then some other group came in to basically plaster it over and beautify it or already change
Yes,
it.
yeah,
Maybe
but
also with intricate
it's
technology.
normal that somebody came in and they modified it. Yeah, even these nation states, wherever they go, they modify things. Now, one person made a comment like that this week on my Facebook, saying it's normal. Somebody's new is going to come in and then they're going to modify it. But the person who made that comment, I knew that they had another agenda. It's because what they are not talking about is that almost every single building worldwide, we're talking about every single building has been modified. We're talking about throughout the world, and it was done by colonial invasions.
Yeah.
That people are talking about all these world empires. It's like, for example, nobody looks at, let's say, British India in the city of Madras. The British went there and colonial people. What did they do in every single city? What they were doing is modifying buildings. Nobody goes and checks this. And then it's because if you're in India, the Indians are angry and they're saying, hey, the British did these things. The British modified buildings, they gave us bogus history, blah, blah, blah. But because they focus on Indian nationalism, yeah, so therefore they can't see what's going on globally. Now, if you look at the way coronavirus was done, we've got countries out there like, let's say, Myanmar, yes, which hasn't got any money to feed its own people, yeah, and to give state benefits. We've got Bangladesh next door. We've got Nepal, another country next door to that, countries that have got no cash. Yeah, India, another country, huge country with no cash. Cambodia going eastwards from Myanmar. All these countries have got no cash. But mysteriously, every single one follows the same agenda, and they did a lockdown in 2020. But then if you're going to do a lockdown, these countries can't afford it. They've got to pay their military, and the police forces or law and order is going to break down. Yes. So what I did is in my books, but nobody really considered it this. Yeah, if you're going to keep everybody at home, yeah, then how are you going to patrol the streets and keep the administration running and all the administrative centres throughout the country running? What do you do? Yeah, the World Bank and the IMF gave them all free cash. Hey, don't worry, guys. Here's money. Just close your countries.
Right.
Yeah, close everything. The cash is free. There's a flood here, disaster. You got to beg for cash. Oh, your people have got no food. Yeah, forget it. We're not giving you anything. You're going to have a lockdown? Don't worry. You got hundreds of millions of dollars here and billions. Just close everything. And then every single country, even countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, countries that that they can't even feed their local populations, are saying, hey, have these vaccines and everything. You can't check into hotels without vaccines. Go to shopping malls. All these third world countries that can't even look after their own people. Colombia, Venezuela, Peru. I'm laughing because they've mysteriously got cash, yes, to keep their police and armed forces running. And then they've got cash to give out vaccines and everything else. Yeah,
it shows how it's a total scam.
So in the same way, they've organized. It's organized. It's like a crime. The way they modified all these buildings and blew the rest of them up. Yes. So now the thing is, they put all these statues inside them, decorations. inside, outside, everything. And then many of them, even in the photographs, like many people have not had a look at this. Look at the pictures of the war, the Franco-Prussian War, 1870s. Then at the same time, look at the pictures of the American Civil War. The uniforms are similar and identical of the people who are fighting in both regions. And then look at let's say the Franco-Prussian War, when Paris got blown up and all these other French cities. Yeah, they say that they got blown up at that time, fighting. Yeah. What you will notice is that the men with the uniforms, their uniforms are always brand new in the photographs, almost brand new, no
Right.
dirt, no nothing. That's another thing. Then another thing you'll notice in these pictures, what will you notice is that some of the buildings that they're doing repairs at the time, and then they're going to show you l'Arc de Triomphe, and then Arc de Triomphe has got these statues and things on the outside. We don't know if they were already there or if they were placed there. That is such a serious thing, is because in the same way that when you examine the photographs of Hitler and everything else, you'll notice that mysteriously all these people are there, or they're fighting a war. But no, they've got the media crew, so many photographers and filmers there that to take pictures of everything. Yeah, at all these while they're making their so-called decisions and talking about secret things of fighting a war, which doesn't make sense. Yeah, and then we've got thousands of videos from the 1930s showing the war, 1930s and 1940s. Nobody's got a television set around the world. Even in 1950, I've forgotten how many. There was probably 5 or 10,000 television sets in the United States, but there's no television channels basically on, and nobody's got any reception, so nobody's watching any TV anyway. So people are watching TV. So why are they making all these television videos or movies? Then they're going to be telling you, we used to play them in the theater. Yeah. But how were they playing these videos in the theaters in the 1930s and 40s when people were working in industrial mills and the people couldn't afford to go to theater? Yeah. And then you've got all these speeches by Hitler that are in German in the 1930s, but, half the people don't speak German. Yes. You've got, speeches by Mussolini and people cheering that the people were crazy about him, that Italy's been united, Italian fascism, but people don't speak Italian. Yes.
That would, of course, open up the huge can of worms, especially with the language. If that is true, then what could have really happened during that time?
You can check this yourself. It's because even in the 1950s and 60s, only 20% of people spoke Italian. Many of these people are still alive. Oh, you're around the corner from Italy. You can ask people, saying, go and ask your grandparents while people are still alive. That's how I find out. Do you know what I do? I don't just read many people. I turn around and say, hey, is your grandfather alive? Is your grandmother alive in different parts of the world? And say, ask them, what can they remember? What can they remember about their grandparents? What were they doing? These are the things that I ask them. Is because another thing, what I did, even in what I did with Muslims in the Sahara Desert, for example, I made a friend with a Muslim person in the Sahara Desert, is because I want to check that how much of the things that are true. It's because, for example, I wanted to see why the Muslims were memorizing things, and did they really memorize it, or is this something that they started new? So I know some people who live in the Sahara region, but of course they go to a city area to study in the university. Now there is a girl that I met, for example, a few years ago, and her grandfather's still alive. He's in his 90s. And I made her ask many questions repeatedly to her grandfather, saying that when he was a child, could he remember how his parents were praying, grandparents were praying? Did they actually pray? Did they memorize the Quran? Was this a system that has continued?
Yeah.
Then I can go back to at least 1850. You see?
Yeah.
Are you beginning to see? So then that's just the Sahara. But then there's Mongolia. Yes. Or Altai region, between Mongolia and Russia. Now, I know somebody from there. Now, that person's grandmother is alive. I made them do the same thing and say, hey, what can they remember? What was their traditions? What did they believe? Because we've been told, hey, that they're Buddhists. Yes. We've been told that these people are Buddhists. So I turned around and said, hey, what language did they speak? Could they communicate with the Russians when the Russians went eastwards, in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s with the railroad through Siberia? I do these things. The average person doesn't think to actually question and research these things so deeply. But that's how much I actually do it, because I'm not willing to just believe. I'm not willing. It's because there's too many lies there, and it's not a joke. We don't even know why we're alive.
Indeed.
We don't even know what we're doing here. The sun and the moon is just moving around every day, and we wake up and we go to sleep. We don't know what we're doing here. Yes. It sounds like a joke. We don't know what we're doing here. And then the thing is, there is nothing there. We can't find anything that's telling us. But now, at last, I've found something that Fomenko has shown beyond a reasonable doubt that history is a lie. He's drawn charts and graphs. I made Fomenko's information easy. I've made it easy in the most simplest language ever. And not only that, I've shown that there is something there mathematically that you can see that these people have just, made up the things as they go along. Yeah.
Yes.
That's all I can say. Have you got any questions? And then we'll leave it at that.
Yes, well, thanks so much. Of course, again, like 3 minutes after you started talking, I hit the record button. So we're good from that point of view. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know to anyone listening, it may be a lot at once, but there's all these crumbs we need to connect. And just like you say, even though, especially in modern times, many people like to dismiss so-called anecdotal evidence, but ultimately we can understand that also any theory and any study ultimately are born out of very much empiric, first-hand evidence. There is not really another source to gather information.
Yeah, evidence is really important. Evidence is really important. We cannot, with that many lies in history, we cannot just sit there on theories and guesswork.
Yeah, or some books and some pictures, if we understand how easily it can be faked.
We can't. We've actually, because one, humanity is at stake. Two, it's causing all these conflicts, divisions, and hatred. That's all I can say. Humanity is at stake. We don't know why we're alive.
Yeah, in a sense,
it's just a joke. So, we're alive, and that's a big joke.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, so, when I say it's a big joke, what I mean by that is existence. Why is there existence? It just doesn't make sense. Yes.
I mean, for existence itself, maybe for this, I mean, I kind of see this planet like a big riddle or a big, puzzle challenge or something like that.
Yeah, yes, yes, it is. Now, the thing is, when you say a big puzzle, riddle, or challenge, the Quran actually says that. Yes, it's a game. It's a game, and you've got to figure it out. And there's clues here. Yes. Actually, the Quran is totally separate. Yes. From the religion of Islam, for modern Islam. Now, I say that in the sense, when I say that, I mean modern Islam, there's too many different groups, different whatevers, and different teachers, different priests, all controlled by many different groups, political organizations. Now, when you just look at that book gives you a totally different story. If you just focus on that book and not modern Islam, then that book turns around and says, hey, you were created, and you're lucky. Yes. And if you're going to turn around and say, hey, that you weren't created, don't forget you didn't exist before. Yes. And then it says, now you exist. And you're going through a puzzle. And then you're going through life for a reason. And then there's all these lies that you're going to find there is because you and humanity has got a common enemy. And it tells you that common enemy is invisible and it's watching you. It's basically in another dimension. It's watching you and it hates you. And they started a war with Adam. And that is the war that's been happening for centuries with humanity. And then every time humanity gets destroyed, on some occasions, it says that God, or you could say nature, call it whatever you want. There's natural disasters, whatever. God has destroyed civilizations. And then in other instances, when people say it's reset and it's organized, yes, in the Quran, it tells you that Satan and his people, in other words, many people are together with him, whatever the advantages are with Satan, and then it turns around and says that, hey, these people, yes, that they're organizing these things for to reduce world's population, do many other things, all their plot schemes and plans. Oh yeah, by the way, then it's like many people turn around and say, hey, what does the word Lucifer mean? Lucifer doesn't have a proper meaning unless if it's in Arabic or possibly in Hebrew. Is because the word la means nothing. La means there is not. Yes, and or la or el for God, and then cipher means zero. So Lucifer means there is no God, basically. Yes.
Oh, very interesting.
It just means that. Yes, that's one. So you got, or otherwise, many people are there trying to guess what Lucifer means. There's so many books, so many blogs. That's why they made sure that, hey, nobody's going to look at Arabic. Yeah. I figured it out because when I first traveled in the Middle East, yeah, when you were looking for, it says press 1 for English, press 2 for Arabic, press 0 to return to the menu.
Right.
Yes. So that's why I had to learn what the number 0 is, cipher, when you're traveling from country to country. So I had to learn these numbers. Then there is the other thing. The Quran turned around and says that Satan's actually name is Balis. Yes. And the army in every country that these colonial militias went to, and these colonial empires, starting off the Russian empires, the Austrian empires, the Dutch empire, the British empire, the French empire, they set up local police administrations. And mysteriously, in all of these countries, it's police, politia, police. Yes. And the Quran says that the name of Satan himself is Balis or Iblis. Iblis, if you pronounce it in very old Arabic.
Right, yeah.
Modern Arabic is police. And the thing is, yeah, we've got the army or the police all over the world running the show. The average police officer is just a normal person. Yes, but they're carrying out the laws. Yes, what they're told to do. Now, in some countries, now police officers are going around, picking up people, saying, hey, you got to have a vaccine, or members of the militia. Yes, so that's what's going on. But the thing is, in many words out there, we can't find a meaning for them because they say, hey, look in Latin, look in French, look in, Saxon languages or whatever, Hebrew. They're trying to tell you.
It is difficult if many of those, as you say, may have been forged only 150 years ago or whatever, or 100 or whatever. It gets really murky.
Yeah, and the thing is, they don't have a proper meaning if we try to understand the new world global system or order that's taking shape. It doesn't have a meaning. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have a meaning. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Yes.
Yes, I only have one bonus question for you because we've been speaking about the blood of Christ a lot, or let's say the whole idea of alcoholism and let's say the modern Catholic Church of giving teenagers alcohol. And one thing I had recently heard, and these are the explanations I like the most, just if you have any clue about that, is that the blood of Christ or this kind of ritual may originally have been some kind of acacia-derived drink similar to ayahuasca. If you had ever heard anything about something like that.
Right. Now, the thing is that question, you can't answer it in a few minutes. It's like, for example, if somebody will turn around and say, hey, the God of Moses or the God of Abraham or the God of Jesus Christ that they call El or Al or Ella or Allah, yes, was he the moon god or the sun god?
Right.
Now, the thing is, because you've asked something that I've not written about and something that you've not read, and we don't have something common to discuss it, it's going to take too long.
Of course, we'll get there another time.
Information that's missing. Yes.
So everyone, keep an open mind. Thank you very much for sharing all of this, and we'll make sure to reconvene soon enough. And maybe if synchronicity aligns, also get you on Team Rabbit Hole at some point, so you can talk a bit about your life story and your travels. I'm sure many people would be interested in that as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay, have a great evening.
Thank you. And you too. Thank you. Bye.